where we're looking at the interior of the doors, and they've received an awful lot of damage and abuse over the years. This door, it's clear that this door was used much more than this one was. This arrangement is of course the fixed door. We have a latch set, a whole series of different latches that were on this that bolted to the top. We've filled in some of that. But over the years in this building, this has received an awful lot of water. Water pouring down the outside and getting caught in the brickwork and whatnot, and laying on these doors destroyed the tenon, the upper part of this rail, and those parts of the mortise. This patch right here that I put in was actually replacing an earlier patch that had been spiked in and with clench nails and nailed through and bent over. The tenons were completely shot, and I actually had to cut them back and make whole new tenons for this piece right here. I cut them off completely and inserted new pieces of pine. It's opened and cleaned so that I can test that mortise, and so that when I glue this thing together, it's going to be the right size and shape, and the tenons will fit into it. Called good, straight pieces of wood, and then fit new pieces into the trimmed openings, and then glue and clamp them together and set it aside for another time. Loose, but I can pour some glue into that and re-adhere that. Now I've got this piece that was rotted and busted off the edge, and it's clean, nice clean line, and truth is it's as they say, good wood. It's been unexposed. So now it's a matter of making a new shoulder to fit in down here, making a new plate to go on the top, putting a couple of shims inside here so that when I clamp it together I don't collapse this thing and make the mortise too small, and goobering it up and putting it together. That will leave me with this end still rotted, you see rotted back, and after this is all done and I take it apart and trim the thing down, I'll repair this by just filling it and basically puttying it out with epoxy, so that the remaining pieces, which are strong enough on the inside but visually still a mess, and they'll fill out, and I'll be able to trim it and make it look like something. Epoxy doesn't stick to the wax, and so it makes for a great barrier material for this kind of thing. What I've done, notice the arrow? I've selected, that arrow shows me the direction of the grain, so that when I go to dress this down to its final thickness, I'll plane in this direction, as the arrow says, and I'll be able to shave that wood off without it tearing. So on my first pass, there's nothing quite so frustrating as to glue the patch in, have everything be good, have picked out a piece that maybe has a little too much angle to its grain, and put your plane on to dress it down the first pass and tear the thing crack, 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 and make as they say, a freaking mess out of it. Screws were used in situations where screws were required, where the holding power of the screw was important. And on a hinge, it was very important to have consistent resistance to the shock of opening and closing the door.
Wait. It's almost as if a blacksmith started out with a rod, pounded the head on, and then handed it over to somebody who then turned the threads, you know?
The alternative before the screw was the clench nail, where you drove a nail through the hinge and bent it over. That nail was longer than the piece that you were hanging wide or thick, and you actually artfully turned the tip of the nail around and drove it back in, and that held a hinge on a door as dead as a doornail, because you could never extract that nail without breaking it. Because up to that point, when you dismantled a house, you saved everything from it, and you would take the nails out, old cut handmade nails. Right. But door nails, hardware nails that were clenched over, never came out. What I'm looking for here is a little bit of body, so I can get some shredding action and not have it all immediately run out. This stuff is a wood, particularly in this end grain area here. The reason I'm using it's like, you know, like trying to glue something to a gravel driveway. It doesn't matter how well it sticks on the surface, it's how much bite you're going to get. So I'm improving my odds by wetting out these areas of pretty beat up pieces of wood. And this epoxy, particularly at this temperature, will soak in, you know, realistically not very far, a 1/16 of an inch, but that's an awful lot of, I mean, that's thousands of wood fibers that it'll come in contact with in a 1/16 of an inch of penetration. So look at me go, huh? That goobered up. That it's a great gap so I don't have to. They put the tenons, slid the tenons into the mortises when they originally made the door, and then drove a chisel in and split the tenons slightly, and then drove wedges from the outside into those splits and expanded the tenons on the outside edge, making kind of that dovetail sort of effect, so that even with the pegs and all of the tension of the fitting, these wedging out and spreading on the outside edge meant that that tenon could never draw out. To take the door apart, I had to find those wedges, the ends of those wedges. Sometimes a matter of reading the grain, but I'd drive the screw into it and then yank on it with a pry bar, and out it comes. So
Yeah.
I'm scoring the fibers on the outside edge, 1/8 of an inch above the surface.
Yeah.
So it always leaves me something to lightly plane off. Want to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to do this. This was a fun project for us to carry these things from the basket case that they were when they showed up. This is great to be able to have our small part, so I can point out the windows. I drive by with my grandchildren that, you know, Stevie and I fixed up those doors, and I'm real pleased, and thank you very much.